resending the link, James,
Okay, let
or
me do
someone.
Oh. "20 minutes. He's more patient than I am."
I'll send the link again to him. Just sent it to him again.
Well, we'll get started. He'll pop in before we get to something important. All right, the time, oh, are we streaming? Are we live?
We are live and streaming.
Time is 3:40 p.m. The day is August the 26th of 2020, and I will call to order the Oversight Committee of the Far West Texas Regional Public Defender Office. For purposes of the recording, my name is Roy Ferguson. I am currently the chair of the Oversight Committee. In attendance, we have James McDermott, the Chief Public Defender, who is hired by this committee through Culberson County. We have Judge Rob Hoffman, who is the district judge with criminal court jurisdiction outside of the region. Julie Balovich, who is a local attorney slot on the board, also the vice chair, I do believe. Is that right, Julie? Thumbs up. All right. We have Edwin Colfax and Jeff Burkhart from the Texas TIDC. We have David Slayton from the OCA. We have Liz Rogers, who is another one of our local attorney seats. We have County Judge Carlos Urias. And interestingly, we have Liz's identical twin sister, who apparently has joined us as well. And lurking in the wings is Paul Chambers, who is the felony 1 public defender. We do have a quorum, and I understand that Judge Dominguez of the 205th, the other district judge, encompassed by the PDO's region, is also joining us momentarily as well. Having found a quorum, we will move on to number 3 on our agenda, which is approval of the minutes of the January 3rd, 2020 Oversight Board meeting. That has been circulated by email. I hope everyone's had a chance to review it, and I would entertain a motion if there is one to be made.
So move.
What is the motion? Judge Urias, are you moving that we accept the minutes as submitted?
As presented.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Jeff Burkhart. Is there any discussion, proposed amendments or corrections? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the January 3rd meeting, please signify that by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Hearing no opposition, motion passes unanimously. We move on to the chair's report. That, I guess, would be me. I don't really have much to add. I will tell you that in spite of our pandemic and our very strict pandemic operating plan, we have really managed to move our cases. In fact, I would venture to say that we probably moved cases through Zoom as well as any region in the state. We have no backlog. We do have a greater number of trial-ready cases, obviously, having had no trials. But I want to commend not only Mr. McDermott, Mr. Chambers, but their entire team for the way that they have responded and adapted quickly and effectively so that our cases get moved, our jails are not overflowing, and we get people out from under felony charges really right on our old schedule. So I don't think I have anything else to add. That is the chair's report. Ms. Balovich, do you want to add anything to the chair's report?
Nope.
Let's move on to number 5, the Chief Public Defender's report. Mr. McDermott, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Judge, and thank you for the comments. I think we have been working really hard during COVID-19 to try and keep up with our cases. It has been very important to us that our clients can have work done on their cases and not have even the appearance that we are sitting in quarantine just waiting for things to happen. Just a quick update on what that has meant is changed how we've done all of our dockets. Our secretary now is sitting watching live on YouTube, all the stream dockets, tracking all the resets and announcements. Our investigator is also watching live, and any work that needs to be done, clients missing, appointments made, and people need to be interviewed are happening right away. This has been made possible in large part because 2 years ago, TIDC decided to invest and give us some equipment for the jails for Culberson and Hudspeth counties. And so we've been able to maintain all of our client visits in those 2 counties, as well as use that equipment in service to the courts to use it for inmate appearances in court by Zoom. That has been a major effort on our part. I think it has been successful, and I spend a lot of time now telling people around the state how positive working these remote hearings has been. In fact, just half an hour ago, I was telling Chair Collier from the Texas House that one of the things that if it were on my wish list would be that the mandatory in-person appearance of defendants in court after the emergency orders have expired would be able to be changed by statute to allow some of these Zoom hearings to continue after emergency orders, because I think it's just been hugely successful for our clients. If I can, I just want to highlight a couple things that I've written down. I give you sort of an overview of what's been happening with our office, including in your materials, what our active caseload numbers are. Our cases still are overwhelmingly, the open cases are in Hudspeth County. And that is a function of multiple issues. I think the El Paso Attorney's Office has been flooding us with appointments recently, or with indictments. But still, we have almost 100 unindicted appointments waiting in Hudspeth County. According to the practice of the El Paso DA, we are not allowed to get discovery or negotiate cases with their intake department before indictment. And so those cases will remain, that kind of number really changes how you look at our numbers. If you take out the unindicted cases, I think our caseload, we're doing our best to keep cases moving, and while still announcing for trial somewhat regularly. And Judge Ferguson had a meeting with us 2 weeks ago to talk about open cases that we've announced for trial. I think that we're actively trying to identify cases that could be done on a bench trial to keep some cases moving while also respecting our clients' rights. A couple things I'd like to highlight for my staff as they've moved during this time. We have taken some of the downtime that involves not driving to do some real internal work on the office. And I want to thank Mr. Chambers, who in the last 3 months has really updated and reformed our efforts in tracking appointments, making sure that all the appointment meetings and phone calls and paperwork is done correctly and on time, and that we're tracking well our inmates. That has been a huge effort on Mr. Chambers' part, and I think we're starting to see the fruit of that now. I think a lot fewer as well times that we'll be appearing in court saying, Judge, we're not sure what appearance we're actually here for, because of the efforts that Mr. Chambers has done to keep track of all of our ongoing dockets. Our junior lawyer, Bailey McShane, is in the FIDDLE program, the Future Independent Leaders program. He has a mentor in the El Paso DA's office. It has been really important to me that in an office of our size, that my staff don't only have me to learn from, that they are getting outside viewpoints and different perspectives. And I think it's really important for him that he's going to be getting that training. I think it's a real benefit to our office and to our region. I would also like to highlight, and I did put it in bold here too in my meeting packet, he got married last month, and that ceremony was by Zoom. So Judge Slayton, or David Slayton, it was done by a judge from Travis County by Zoom. He was in Marathon. You can put that in your success list for court administration. And among the other things, just two other issues to tell you about the staff. Our secretary, who has been carrying such a huge load and helping us transition to the online course, in the meantime, lost 2 family members to COVID-19. So it's been difficult for us and has made the issue really real for our office. The last thing I want to bring up for the staff is just that we got the grant almost a year ago for the social worker from TIDC, and we were able to hire her in January, almost immediately. There was somebody local who applied. I myself was a little doubtful about what we could do with a social worker. I had ideas, but I remember when Jeff Burkhart called me about a year and a half ago saying this money might be around and could we do something with it? I thought, well, we don't have a lot of resources here. Who are they going to refer things to? But I thought, I don't know everything a social worker does, and let's turn to the experts. The board approved the grant, TIDC approved the grant. She has transformed how we've been able to do representation for our mentally ill clients. Between connecting to resources, but also developing mitigation and getting records and helping make sure that the lawyers understand the issues that are going on or effectively advocate for them. If anybody were to ask me, I'd say that every public defender office should have social workers in them to work on this kind of thing. She's been a wild success from my viewpoint. And so I want to thank everybody for helping us bring her on. And lastly, for y'all, and I think this is some relevant, I did print out in your meeting book some case comparisons for our numbers over time, appointments and closings. I've organized them by quarter, both in aggregate and then comparison by county. The main thing that I was looking for was changes during the shutdown. If you'll look at the shutdown, probably started at the end of the second quarter of 2020. We did not see a lot of change there at the beginning, but that was I think Judge Ferguson started our courts sometime March 13th, somewhere around there, was when we stopped having in-person court. So we really had a full quarter for the second quarter. The third quarter numbers were lower across all counties and in the aggregate, of course. I think that what we saw was there were 2 months where arrests were down across the jurisdiction, and we are getting very regularly, at least for 3 of our counties, appointments at magistration for felonies. And as arrests went down, our numbers went down. But I think, and we also didn't have court for about a month during that time as well, for most of April. So our closings obviously went down in that quarter, but I think that sort of my quick review of the fourth quarter is that we're very much right on track, and I'm pleased with the work that my office is doing. What will come up here at the end of our agenda is just that with the idea towards many of these court hearings continuing by Zoom, that has changed how we're spending money, how we're not spending money, and what some of the needs of our office are. And I'll be happy to address that when we get to the appropriate agenda item.
All right.
This is raising her hand.
Oh.
But not talking.
May I have a question? I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, you always teach me things, but did I hear you say that Bailey's mentor is out of the DA's office?
No, out of the public defender in El Paso. If I said DA's office, I misspoke.
Okay, thank you. I was just interested in how that was going to work. Okay, thank you.
I thought that was interesting too, but you know, hey.
No, I'm sorry. That was my misspeak.
James has always got cutting edge ideas, so I thought it might be something that we should look at. So thank you.
Sorry.
Leave it to our defense attorneys to leap upon that kernel as it's dropped on the floor there. The rest of us are like, hey, whatever, that's cool. And Liz and Julie probably both flinched.
I wasn't sure it wasn't cool. I just was interested if he had started something new that I didn't know about.
I was especially interested because it would have been a violation of our program rules. So I was glad to hear it's the PD.
Right, and I didn't set up the mentors, TIDC did, so that would have been doubly surprising.
The whole second row sat forward in their chairs when you said that, I'm afraid. All right, let's move on. Oh, Julie, I saw your hand go up. Did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask on the unindicted numbers. I can't remember from your last report. Has there been any change that is affected by COVID in terms of has the grand jury's been going down or what's been taken to grand jury?
Yes, in the Tri-County, we have not had grand jury for several months, and I've been told that there's not one planned for the rest of the year. I think that in Jeff Davis County, we do not have any active cases on the docket in felony court, in district court. In Presidio, we've got a few, but I think maybe half of them are trial announcements, and by a few, I think under 5. And in Brewster County, when we're used to having 60 to 80% of the active docket, the docket now is 10, 15 people, and we've got 2 or 3. Judge Dominguez has now joined us.
He's shaking his head. Zoom works in mysterious ways, Judge.
Anyway.
Glad you made it. We're on the agenda. We're on number 5 at the moment.
So Judge Dominguez has missed, and I think that one of the things that has been is that our 205th dockets do run very differently than the 394th. And so, but I think we've had several meetings with Judge Dominguez to talk about how to move cases during these times. There is a plan, and we've also got 2 jury trials set for November on the off chance that our courts will be open for in-person hearings. So we do have settings held, but remember, Judge, as I told you once in docket, I try to be bright and shiny.
Yeah, you got a thumbs up from Slayton, but mine was a sarcastic thumbs up.
I've known you long enough, Judge, to know that it was in fact sarcastic.
David's got a real thumb though. So David, let's just jump right in. You think they're going to be having jury trials in November?
Stay tuned. Our report to the Supreme Court is due Friday on the jury trials. I expect the court will likely provide some insight as to what the future holds next week. So I don't think I've not been hiding this fact. I know we're live on YouTube, but my recommendation is to the court is that they not move the 10/1 date any further. There will be some restrictions on, obviously everybody can't go back to normal. And we don't know what October or November are going to hold with regard to coronavirus cases. So that'll be a big part of it. But I think we've learned enough now that we know how judges can go about doing it. And I think we can give good enough direction that judges could do it. We'll just see, you have to wait and see what the situation holds with regard to the virus.
Yeah, I think that if we can be instructed by anything, Alabama and North Carolina's first week of school does not give me great hope that we're not going to see a surge when our larger 5 and 6A schools reopen.
Yeah, I can tell you that all the courts that, several of them that have been approved for September jury trials in districts where children are back in person at schools, they're very nervous about their ability to proceed. And we'll be watching that very closely to see what's going on with that.
Yeah, the going forward full bore with UIL sports, I think has really thrown us into this we have no idea what's coming phase. I know that one of our schools, before school even started, had a scrimmage against another school, and 2 days later they got a call that someone on the other team was COVID positive before school even started. And we're talking about these tiny little towns. I'm not talking about Houston, Dallas. So while I would love to see that we can get somewhat back to normal, I suspect that by the time the numbers come in from school, we may have to do yet another reevaluation. But I know that David, y'all are right on top of it more than anyone anywhere else in the country. So we're going to trust y'all to stick with it for us. Anyone else want to add anything or ask any questions of the chief before we move on to number 6? All right, number 6, the report of the Texas Indigent Defense Commission. Which one of you wants to take it and run? Go, Jeff.
Judge. Thanks, sir. I'll mention three things. I want to talk just briefly about our revenue, our budget, and then new public defender offices. Before I do, the thing that folks might be most interested in, even though we're seeing an economic downturn and we're seeing some impact in the legislature, there isn't anything that will affect our funding of this program of Far West Texas Public Defender Office. So TIDC funding for this program is very secure. So I just want to say that up front, just make sure you all know. Our revenue took quite a hit. We were down about $9.4 million this year compared to last year, so quite a hit. The good news is we do have some funds from previous biennia that have accumulated in the account, and I think that's going to help get us through revenue-wise. So we're in an okay shape, at least in the short term being FY 2021, and perhaps maybe even the 22-23. Budget, we did take a budget hit like other state agencies. We are part of the Office of Court Administration. We were cut 5% for TIDC's biennial budget. That's approximately $4.7 million that we lost in terms of spending or expenditures that we could send out the door. That is impacting a little bit what we're doing in terms of formula grant funding and also how many improvement grants we're able to give. Improvement grants are what we use to fund new public defender offices. Despite that, our board is meeting tomorrow. We believe that if all goes well, we'll be creating 3 new public defender offices in Texas that will cover an additional 10 counties. All of them are rural or mid-sized counties, so we're excited about that. And then last thing I mentioned, James has been a big part of our Texas Chief Public Defender group that has been meeting every 2 weeks. He's been very active in that group, one of the leaders of that group. So I just want to thank James for all of his work. And trivia that I learned in the midst of that and in working with James, we always talk about public defenders as fighters and fighting for your client. I learned that James is actually a pugilist, that James actually is a boxer, which I did not know. So interesting trivia, excited to know that. And thank you again, James, for all of your work statewide that you've been doing. We appreciate it.
If I can say one thing, Jeff, if we were to lose a staff member or an attorney and needed to fill that position, one of the things that I'm worried about is with the state opening 3 new rural or semi-rural public defenders, now is not the time for me to need to be recruiting an attorney because there's going to be a lot of attorney positions that are much closer to cities. So that is something that I'm part of what I'm doing in response to that is really spending some time with our junior attorney, really trying to give him reasons to stay.
Excellent, thank you.
Good. The only thing I'd add to that is that we have had historically a little bit of a brain drain from Texas for people who want to do public defense and are going to other states. And I'm hoping your program, along with some of these new ones, we can keep some more folks who are graduating from UT or Texas Tech or now A&M in the state working. So yeah, we're happy to support you in any way we can.
Well, we have been truly blessed by this whole process. I mean, from a single phone call with Edwin to be where we are and have James doing such a great job and getting recognized statewide for it, to having Paul now coming up, really it's been a blessing. And Judge Dominguez and the county judges can speak for themselves, but for me, it has just revolutionized the way we do things out here. And that we've got 2 different DA's offices and we have attorneys that come in from all over the state. But I know that when something comes in and I make one quick call, it's going to get taken care of. And that's true both when I go to James or when I go to the TIDC. We acknowledge how lucky we are to be where we are instead of where we were 5 years ago. I don't know that the people of our community truly understand just how different things are. But every chance I get, I let them know. So thank you, Jeff, Edwin, Wesley, everyone down there who has worked so hard for us. We appreciate it. So, anyone else have a question for Jeff or Edwin?
But I join in what you said. I just, I won't repeat it, but I join in. I probably don't thank them as often as you do or as often as I should, but I agree wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. All right, let's move on to number 7, nomination of 2 persons to board membership. These are persons with substantial experience in criminal defense and/or indigent policy and practice. Are these, James, two practicing attorneys?
The judge, I was reading the bylaws, which I've included in your meeting packet. And I think that these positions were supposed to be staggered. And I think the board has been constituted for 3 years now. The membership section is on page 2 of 5 in the bylaws. And it just says exactly as I quoted: 2 members nominated by the chair, appointed by Culberson County Commissioners Court, and then as I quoted in the agenda. So it does not say attorneys, it says persons.
We were looking at the language, and I think we've taken a little bit of liberty, but I don't think we can be faulted for it. The last thing we wanted to do was build a board as we're trying to create something new in the state, and then immediately start pulling people off and replacing. So, my interpretation of this was that it would be acceptable for us to go a full term with everyone on it, and then begin the staggering process so that we have one replaced each year, rather than everybody rolling off every 2 or 3 years. So we have 6, I guess, total that would be staggering, and we're doing 2 every 3 years. Is that right? 2 every year. Is that right, James?
I only see 3 people who need to be appointed total.
Okay, so it's
Everybody
1 a
else
year.
is 1 a year. Yes, Judge.
I would, of course, my hope would be that someone would nominate that we continue with the board that we have, and then they would be willing to do so. I think that right now that's, I guess that would be Julie and Liz. James, help us out here. Give us some guidance.
Yes, Judge, the 2 members who are, and this goes to item number 8 as well, the 2 members who are members of personal substantial experience are Julie and Liz. And I think I alerted them before this meeting about the nomination and membership process. And then item number 8, which is going to be the same similar conversation as Judge Hoffman, which has to be a district judge with felony criminal jurisdiction from outside the region.
Well, he is certainly that. I don't know how you want to handle the nominations. I guess I could call for nominations from the floor for those seats that are available for appointment.
Well, I could nominate Liz, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, then I would nominate Liz to serve.
Thank you. And
second
then I
that
can nominate
motion.
Julie. I'm paying attention.
Thank you very much. Do either one of you wish to reject the nomination before we move forward here?
James makes it an easy job, Judge. I'm glad to stay with y'all.
Julie, you're my vice chair, so I hope you'll stick with us.
Yes, I'm happy to do so. I think my work with legal aid complements overseeing the public defender. So,
All right, are there any additional nominations from the floor for those 2 positions? I'll entertain a motion on those 2 positions.
So moved.
All right, Jeff has moved that we appoint Julie and Liz to our 2 open public positions. Do I have a second?
I second.
Any further discussion?
Call the question.
All right, Jeff has moved. Judge Dominguez has seconded. There being no further discussion. All those in favor of appointing Julie and Liz to another term on the board, please say so by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? There being no opposition, the motion passes. Next, we have our judge from outside the region with felony criminal jurisdiction. Judge Hoffman currently holds that position. Would there be any nominations from the floor for that position?
I would nominate Judge Hoffman to continue with that position.
Judge Hoffman, you've been nominated. Would you be willing, or would you reject such a nomination?
I didn't know if you were going to let me off of mute. I'll be happy to continue. Thank you.
Do we have any additional nominations or alternative nominations from the floor? All right, hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of appointing Judge Hoffman to the district judge's position on the board, please signify the same by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, other than Judge Hoffman? All right, the motion passes unanimously. Welcome back to the board, everyone. All right, let me get back to the agenda. Number 9 on the agenda, consider and adopt the terms of office of the members of the board. James, what's that issue about?
That is just to consider whether to set these 3 terms as staggered or concurrent with each other, and what this, if it is staggered, what the terms are.
What do y'all think about that?
I think they should stagger, and I'd like to have a 1-year term, and or however we want to stagger them, James, if it's my position. Let me take the least term and let Julie stay, if she will, the longer, because I'm older.
I'm not going to address the logic behind that, but I have no problem with allowing for our September meeting or our end of year meeting in 2021 to address the public position currently held by Liz, and then we'll put Julie's on 2022. That's agreeable with me. I'm not sure if we need a motion for that or not, but what do y'all think?
I do think it's good to stagger terms so that we don't all lose institutional knowledge.
Right, and the documentation does call for that. So we'll just clarify that we'll go ahead and put yours up next year. We'll put Julie's up the next year, and then we'll just flip back and forth between those two.
Judge, I believe that the question in the bylaws also has Judge Hoffman's position in the staggered process as well.
All right. Want to do his in 2023, I think it is. Or just nod if that works for y'all. All right, everybody's nodding.
Are we making these 1-year terms then, just coming up?
That's what, well,
To get it staggered, and then
they're not 1-year terms, they're staggered 3-year terms, right?
They are
Okay.
staggered 3-year terms, Judge. And I think
Got
for
it.
purposes of transition to the staggering, one would be a 1-year term and one would be a 2-year term, but nominations at the end of each one of those would be for a 3-year term.
Right.
Got
We've
it.
each done 1 3-year term, I believe, right?
Yes.
And so now we're just getting ourselves on track for 1 3-year term starting each year, starting next year.
Yes, Judge.
All right, that works for me. Consider and accept proposal to approve use of up to $15,000 from the unused portion of our current fiscal year's budget for the purchase of new technology. James, take it away.
Yes, and if I can just follow up one last item with number 7 and 8 and 9, I think those, according to bylaws, need to be presented then after adoption by the board to Commissioners Court in Culberson County.
So do you think we need a formal motion and vote on those things? Why would we need that for the board membership?
It just says in the bylaws that that the chair nominates, officially nominates, and then the nomination is accepted by Commissioners Court in Culberson County.
All right, let me get to that real quick.
The appointment is made by Commissioners Court in Culberson County for both those, for all 3 of those positions. That's
So
on page
could Judge
2 of the
Ferguson
bylaws.
then, recommend to the Commissioners Court that Liz be appointed for a 1-year term, Julie for a 2-year, and Judge Hoffman for a 3-year?
I believe that is true. I did not see in here language that required full board action on it. It was just the only action required by this is nomination by the chair, appointment by Culberson County Commissioners Court.
Where are you seeing that? I'm sure you're right. I just want to lay my eyes on it.
On the bylaws, page 2 of 5 at the top, it's in the section describing membership. The first and the 7 permanent members. The second arrow is 2 members appointed. The third arrow is 1 member nominated. And then the last is 3 members serving ex officio.
Understood. As recommended by the board, I will adopt the board's nomination. I will make that recommendation to the Culberson County Commissioners Court in accordance with the board's recommendation.
All right, Judge, then if we're talking about item number 10. Because of COVID, if you'll remember last year, we had some budget issues that involved estimates regarding travel and other issues around spending. We had a budget adjusted in January in order to account for those. 2.5 months later, COVID caused a shutdown, which has changed everything about how we have spent money. There's twofold. If you look in the last 2 pages of your meeting book, the second to last page is the budget taking out personnel expenditures. So it's just discretionary spending. It looks to me right now, this was as of a week and a half ago, numbers that were provided by Culberson County, that we have not spent $23,000 that we should have spent by the end of the third quarter. There's 2 parts to that. One is that in quarter 1, fairly much the beginning of quarter 1, Edwin from TIDC had contacted me about our overages. We did not get the budget reconciled until January. And so I spent the first quarter with my office on an austerity plan. We were spending no money except what was absolutely necessary in order to be able to come to TIDC and to this board to ask for the budget reconciliation and adjustment. So we underspent in that quarter just everywhere we could. Quarters 2 and 3, I think, were majorly affected by the travel and COVID. I have laid out on the spreadsheet what I think by quarter our budget is for each of these line items and what we've actually spent and what the differences are. Even if we are spending more on track in quarter 4, I still expect us to not spend another $9,000 or so dollars. Which would leave the end of the fiscal year with us not having spent $30,000 that was in our budget. The problem that we've got now is that we are all, except for the office administrator, working on laptops. And the office administrator is on a desktop, but it's got 1 screen. I anticipate, based on what I think has been a very successful move to Zoom dockets and pleas, to be able to do this long term. I don't know what the future holds for COVID, but I think that there is a possibility that there may be ongoing issues. I want my office to be able to be prepared to have substantive hearings in court based on, and we don't have the technology for that. What we need are, for example, we need extra monitors so that I can be looking at documents on one side, preparing documents, looking at case notes, looking at files, and also appearing in court on a different screen instead of toggling back and forth between screens in order to be prepared. Comes with that are some other issues with microphones, the proper lighting. I think that I will watch generally every docket that my office is in now, since they're all streaming. I will be on YouTube watching them, and so I'm seeing the private attorneys versus my office. I'm also sort of sampling what other attorneys are doing across the state and what's happening in other courts. There is a difference based on how we look and sound on the screen and what is going on in the courtroom. I've got Mr. Chambers here, who had prepared the proposed budget for the expenditures, which is on the last page of your docket, of your book. And I think right now, some vendors get a little funny about using different ways to use tax exempt. So I included a tax in there, which usually we'd use the Culberson County's tax exempt form for. But if vendors refuse to work with us on that, which some of the technology ones do, we would still have an estimate here of just over $14,500 to spend, I think, to fully upgrade our office to be able to continue to do not just the docket calls that we're doing, but some more substantive hearings as well. I think with Judge Ferguson, we had announced for 2 or 3 trials already that we thought we could do to the bench, as well as suppression hearings. I think many suppression hearings were credibility of the witness is not really an issue. We can easily do to the bench by Zoom, always to the bench, but we can do them by Zoom. And having this technology, I think, will make that more effective. And so my request is an approval of up to $15,000. These are estimates on here. Obviously, pricing can change, but I think there's 15,000 would be plenty elasticity to take that from money that we have not spent that was already in our budget for this fiscal year, transfer it from those other line items over. That will still leave around $14,000 to $15,000 in our budget at the end of the fiscal year that we would not have spent even if this is approved. And Mr. Chambers here, if anybody's got any questions about the proposed budget or the items on the proposed budget.
For the most part, everything you have on this list, I have on the table that I have before me right now. So I think all of us at this point know that you cannot run a meaningful hearing with one screen. It's impossible to do. Certainly impossible to do well. So, I've got 3 screens here that I do different things. That's why I'm looking over here at your paperwork and here to see you. So I also think that we've been incredibly lean. My court also has given back almost $30,000 just to one county just in this fiscal year because we're not driving. We're not spending any money. So I agree with you. It's necessary from my perspective for y'all to continue to be able to adequately represent the hundreds of people you've had appointed. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Chambers about the technology upgrade proposal that you can see there on page 32 of the book? No questions?
Great idea. I'm sorry, Judge.
No, thank you. Does anyone want to chime in on this?
Can I move to, I move to accept it and to let them upgrade.
Okay.
I think that I would ask you to amend the motion to include a transfer in the budget of the unused funds from, have you identified for us, Mr. McDermott, which line items you wish to move those funds from and to?
I have not, Judge. I've just added up everything that we have not spent as of now that was budgeted to be spent to the end of July. So that's not a projection, and then separately is a projection including the fourth quarter. But the money we've not spent by the end of quarter 3 is still $20,000, which is $5,000 more than this.
The question is for Jeff and Edwin.
Right.
For y'all's purposes, is there wording of a motion we can make now that will satisfy you so that it doesn't throw off your budgeting? Edwin?
So I would work with James to just identify the specific line items where there's unused budget and then describe the transfer. I can tell you that from our perspective and the grant perspective, it's, we'll approve this at the staff level. I've already touched base with Jeff about it, and we agree with you all that it's necessary and appropriate. It doesn't impact negatively the counties in any way, and will help the program. I would suggest a motion to authorize James to work with Culberson County to make line item adjustments to the budget to accommodate the proposed technology purchase.
Up to the current amount of the budget.
Perfect.
Right? Because we don't want to accidentally go over. We're not authorizing them to go over the existing budget just to
Yes,
use.
I think that's a good caveat.
I wanted to ask, does this incorporate any kind of shipping costs, or are those included
Paul?
for the technology?
It does not. This is just the prices that you get from, Amazon or Fry's or Best Buy.
So some of them have shipping costs, I assume, that are waived if you pay by a certain amount.
I mean, if it's on Amazon, you can order it with Prime and free shipping, all of this stuff.
Okay.
So.
I was just wondering about flexibility, like they were saying, whether we needed to be able to authorize it to go higher if there were things like.
What if we had something that was a little more flexible that said we would authorize the department to use any funds left in the existing fiscal year's budget for technological upgrades to the department? Will that work? Is that, Edwin, does that work for you?
From our perspective, that's fine. We will, if the board takes that action today, we will coordinate with Judge Arias and James to amend the award to that effect. So yes, I think that from our perspective would be fine.
Ms. Rogers, would you amend your motion to in that way?
Yes, I would, Judge.
Jeff, I believe you seconded. Would you also second the amended motion?
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the motion as amended, please signify the same by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. McDermott, upgrade your office.
Thank you. And Judge, I forgot one item from my chair report that I want to mention before we close the meeting.
Go ahead.
One thing I forgot to mention is that this summer we've had a law clerk from the University of Texas. We've been very lucky to have her. She's had a student bar card and has appeared to do some pleas. She has both, because UT is having their classes virtually this fall. She has stayed with us till October and is continuing to work with us during that time. She has approached me about looking for a way for her to be able to come on after she graduates next year. There's nothing for the board that I want to bring to the board now for any decisions. But some of our funding options do not include, but require the health insurance to be covered. So if there were something in the future that we're moving in that direction, I may come back to the board to talk about whether the board is interested in approving such a supplement. There's nothing now. I just wanted to say for the board, we've been very lucky to have her. I was doubtful. It's another one of my great doubts because she decided not to do her other summer law clerkship and was looking for another place to come. And I thought, well, here's going to be somebody just looking for something to fill up their summer. And she's been fantastic from the beginning. And so I just wanted the board to be aware of that. And if there was anything my staff could do to have her stay after she graduated, we would love it. But of course, there's money involved and we don't know what the future holds. There could be money involved and we don't know what the future holds.
And, one of my concerns about the impact of COVID was on this department because I know that we work very hard to estimate numbers for the commission. And in fact, I think we had a discussion at one point because the numbers were a little bit different or appeared to be a little different. And we were concerned about the impact on our funding. I think everyone's numbers are going to be down this year. So I'm a little concerned about whether or not in a normal year, I think our numbers would support exactly what you're requesting, but in a COVID year, the numbers may not support that. So I hope that the commission.
You're frozen, Judge.
Yeah, something happened.
James, while we're waiting for Judge Ferguson to come back, I would say I know the intern you're talking about. I've met with her before and was very impressed by her. I'm with Judge Ferguson on it. I think we look at the caseload numbers and see if it makes sense. But certainly an impressive, well, I was going to say young attorney, but impressive law student.
We have been super thrilled with her. Any of the discussions that she and I have had have always been couched with the knowledge that funding may not support the addition of a person, but that I would, this is early in the process and I'm willing to explore options. I prefer not to close doors until they need to be closed.
I guess y'all got the gist before I dumped out. Second thing I wanted to mention, those of you who follow me on Twitter, I put out a call for lawyers across the state to reach out to their law schools wherever they are in the state and sponsor 3Ls with their bar cards. They're struggling right now. Not only do they not get to have law school like we did, but there aren't any clerkships. There aren't any hearings for them to attend. But we have an opportunity because of COVID. We actually have a positive that we can get out of this. They can appear anywhere in the state for a lawyer anywhere in the state, so long as they are sponsored. And James has done it. Our DA's office has done it.
My office has done it.
There you go. I want to encourage everyone, both in this room and listening, and David, for you to help us with that. Reach out to these lawyers and let them start sponsoring these 3Ls who are suffering right now in whether they get to take the bar, whether they get to go to class. Can they, I had internships and clerkships all the way through, and they don't get those. So I know I don't want to speak for Judge Dominguez, but I'll say for myself, I am happy to have 3Ls come in and do some family law and do some other smaller things and take some pleas and do some arraignments. Let's get them some courtroom experience in a positive way, where right now they've got nothing that they're really excited about.
I actually was not aware of that, so I will absolutely investigate that. That sounds like a great idea. So thanks for sharing that. I hadn't even, that wasn't on my radar, so I'll look into that. Thank you.
One of our law grads handled a contested temporary orders hearing in Fort Stockton from Virginia.
Great.
With their bar card.
Perfect. Yeah, I put something about this on Twitter, and it did get some life. I mean, the 3Ls really, they're upset. They're upset about the bar exam. I know y'all have been following that commotion, and they're not getting what they want. Of course, they're the students who are impacted, so those of us here understand that, but it would be nice if there was something we could do. And that's something that as judges, it's easy for us to do, but we need the lawyers to reach out to the schools so they can be paired up with the students. 100,000 lawyers, we don't have that many 3Ls. We ought to be able to make this happen. So I would appreciate any nudge that y'all can give.
And I would say, what a great way to expand access to justice for people who might not otherwise be able to get it. I mean, it's just, connect people with lawyers too. I mean, it's just, it could go all, I kept saying that the remote hearing is one of the biggest things may be the potential of really truly expanding access to justice, because lawyers can now appear anywhere without having to leave their office with clients. So I think your idea is great. We should be promoting it.
We had a hearing today that was expected to go all day, and it ended up going about 5 minutes. The lawyers would have had to drive. The clients would have had to take time off of work. Instead, everyone popped in. They told me they worked it out. We set a couple of scheduling decisions, and they were gone. And I actually mentioned to them in the live stream what a difference this makes for them, because that would have been a $1,500 5 minutes. And instead, it's a $50 5 minutes. So for access to justice purposes, for not, Julie can't take every single person that needs a lawyer, but maybe we can make the cost of lawyering, instead of $5,000 and outside of everyone's realm of possibility, $500 for some of these smaller cases if they don't have to travel. So, but this is another way to bring the cost down even further, because there's zero cost for a 3L to come in and get that experience. So just want to put my latest passion out there for everybody.
No, thank you.
We've reached the end before we adjourn, which I'm happy to do. Does anyone have anything else they want to bring up?
Yeah, if we're done with business, I know everybody is surviving with like Amazon Prime and Netflix and other entertainment. I understand that Netflix is going to have a great sort of mini documentary, and it's about tall women traveling around the world, and it's based on Liz Rogers' last. I don't know if you all followed her on social media, but I think it's going to be outstanding.
You're so nice, Parker. I'm in Valentine, Nebraska, where it's 95 degrees, and I can see on my phone that it's 90 degrees in Alpine. So I have not escaped the cold weather.
And for those of you who didn't catch the joke, and I'm sorry, I'm sometimes a little obscure that way. I guess I don't even remember when it was, but I was following Liz on social media, and she had a wonderful trip within the last year, maybe it was a year ago.
Africa.
And at every stop, there was like some different tall woman standing with her, which was one of the most fun things that I followed. So
Thank you.
we do live vicariously through everybody else's joy. So anyway, that's my commercial.
See y'all all dressed up like lawyers and being in court, and I'm telling you, I'm getting less and less farther and farther away from it, Judge Ferguson.
Well, you wouldn't be alone. We've had some very interesting experiences. I heard there was a shirtless plea yesterday. I think that was Adam Van Ho's, one of his clients.
Oh.
I have had someone come in for their arraignment that may have been Mr. McDermott's client in a fluffy robe with his hair up in a towel, fresh from the shower.
We have had children. We've had children.
What's that?
We had a sleep on Monday.
He was
that
sleeping.
the young lady I told her to get up?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, Judge.
Get your head off the pillow. We've had that. Judge Hoffman, what about you? What have you had?
Well, I don't know if we can talk Judge Stubbs' picture from yesterday of his screenshot of the lady rolling a marijuana cigarette while he was asleep. I hope
Oh, man.
that's awesome. It gets way to you, David, and you can use that in some presentation.
Was that Judge Evan Stubbs?
Yeah, that was over in San Saba or something.
Oh, that's great.
So does the screenshot violate the recording rules?
Oh
for
yeah,
birth-
somebody's in contempt.
Not if he did it
For
himself.
judicial education purposes.
Yeah.
It was a 25-cent fine, I think.
Gotcha. Okay.
No, my favorite one is when the folks that don't take seriously the proper courtroom attire order, and they show up at a hearing like this.
So you won't know.
No, right. And then they move, and then you see that they're like in a wife beater shirt or something. It's just
I will
delightful.
not comment on how some of my own staff have appeared for court on Zoom. Totally appropriate up top.
That's what
Totally
matters.
appropriate up top. I will plead the fifth on behalf of my office for everything else.
Well, it is the traditional lawyer's one-piece suit.
That's right. If I may say something before we finish, just personal, I'm certain that, I don't know if my memory is accurate, but I'm certain that at some point when I was interviewed for this job, that there was a note that I've not had, my career, while interesting to me, has not been one marked by stability. And I've been here 3 years. In a year from now, I will have been at this job longer than anything else I've done. I am deliriously happy with this job and living here and being part of this community. And I just want to thank the board for bringing me here. Julie
So we
Ballard.
can go into executive session now. Sorry, timing is kind of awkward.
You're not going to make that 4th year, I'm afraid. Mr.
I guess not. I should have known if Miss Balovich was my boss that there was going to be something.
Well, we've been lucky to have you. You've done a great job.
Thank you, Judge.
Liz?
Agreed. Agreed. I'm gonna sign off if it's okay, y'all. I've got road to travel.
We have hit number 11. We have completed our agenda, which means no motion is necessary. I declare the meeting adjourned.
Bye.
Thank you all for being here. We'll see you in 3 more years.
Yeah. Bye bye. See you. Thanks.